Hello everybody, welcome to all grade 11 learners and grade 11 educators. My name is Linda Hackner and I'm the Director of Education at the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Centre. And together with all my colleagues at the centre, we are really pleased to be able to bring you unit number 6 of a series of units that we are doing, which deals with what's in your curriculum under theories of race of the 19th and 20th centuries and its effect on governments. In Unit 6, we're going to continue looking at the case study of Nazi Germany. So now, when Hitler comes to power in 1933, the very first law that he passes is the law for the prevention of hereditarily diseased offspring. In other words, if you have a child with a disability, that child is going to be forcibly sterilized. Now, grade 11s, I've spoken to you before in the previous unit about sterilization, and I told you that there were laws worldwide. Let's have a look at how it works in Germany. Between 1933 and 1939, that's a period of 6 years, 400,000 German citizens were sterilized, 800 of whom were German children of African descent. Remember, I told you that the Rhineland was occupied by France, who brought soldiers from the countries that they occupied in Africa, and those soldiers met women, married, had children. Now, the Nazis did not want people to pay, I suppose, for people who had disabilities. And so they set their propaganda machine into process. And in the slide that you see here, the propaganda machine is trying to get the population behind the forced sterilization of people with disabilities or those who are considered asocial. And what does that mean? Firstly, have a look at the picture there. You will see sort of Mr. so-called Aryan. He's very strong, he's tall, you can see he's well built, but he's struggling under this burden. Hier tracht du mit means this is also your burden. And what is his burden? Well, if you have a look at what he's carrying on his shoulders, you can see two people, but they're not made to look like people. They're made to look like creatures, almost like monsters. So on the right-hand side, you have a person with a face almost like a primate, like a monkey. This person represents those with mental disabilities. The other person wearing a hat represents, who's got almost like a mask-like face. He represents people that the German government considers asocial, vagrants, people who have had too many children and don't work and can't look after them. So this poster is saying to German people, looking after these people is costing you money. It's your burden. And you could be spending that money elsewhere. Let's not spend money on that. So this is how the propaganda machine against people with disabilities starts to work. And we can see, grade 9, that the Nazis want to get rid of people who are not going to improve the German race and who have no use in society. Hitler called these people useless eaters or life unworthy of life. Now, I just want to state right now that these are not necessarily people who are Jewish or people who are Black or people who are Roma or Sinti. These are disabled. Of course, among them might have been Jews or Black people or Roma and Sinti, but mostly they are disabled children or family members of so-called pure Germans, but they are considered useless eaters. They're eating and they're not giving anything back. They're not worthy of living. So in 1939, the Nazis decide that They should kill the mentally ill, the terminally ill, and the physically and mentally handicapped. Terminally ill would mean someone, for instance, who had cancer and was going to die anyway, not going to bother trying to support those. They euphemistically call this euthanasia, okay? A euphemism is a nice way of saying something horrible. So often when we talk about the death of somebody, we don't say so-and-so is dead. We say so-and-so has passed over, or so-and-so has passed away. That's a euphemism. Now, for the Nazis, euthanasia, which they used euphemistically, actually means mercy killing, something you do out of a good place in your heart. So, for example, if you've got a pet at home who's sick, you would take that pet to the vet or to the SPCA, and they would inject something in the animal to put it gently to sleep, and finally it would die. This is mercy killing. This is something you do from a good place. The Nazis were not killing their disabled from a good place. What they were doing was murdering members of Germany's population. They called it mercy killing, they called it euthanasia, but let's not make any mistake, grade 11, it was murder. And what you need to understand is that one of the very few documents that Adolf Hitler signed was a document telling doctors that it was time to start killing people, right? In 1939, the euthanasia program, that's what they call it, but we know it's a murder program, begins officially. Now, I want to ask you a question. The year is 1939. Why in 1939 is this decision made? And because you're not here in the classroom with me, I'll have to give you the answer. And the answer is that World War II begins in 1939 so that the German government can start this program of murdering those they don't want under cover of war. What are the population in Germany thinking about? They're thinking about war. They're thinking about their own safety. They're thinking about what's going to happen. They're not looking at what's going on in the hospitals. And grade 11s, who managed and conducted the killings? Well, one would think maybe it would be soldiers or the army, but I'm very disheartened to tell you that it wasn't. It was doctors and nurses, the very people who are meant to cure you, help you, protect you when you're vulnerable, look after the sick, try and uplift those with disabilities. They are the ones who conduct and carry out the killings, the people that you are meant to trust, doctors and nurses. Now, where did the murders take place? Well, the euthanasia, as they are called, the euthanasia centers, the murder hospitals are in Germany at hospitals that are used as hospitals. And there was one particular hospital that I want to mention to you, and that is Hadamar. Hadamar, before 1933, was considered one of the best hospitals for people with disabilities in the world. People came from all over the world to see how German doctors took such good care and helped their disabled, both mentally and physically, to uplift themselves and to lead better lives. And they had the medical technology of those days. Hadamar, I'm afraid, became a place where people were murdered. How are the murders done? Well, by lethal injection for younger people and gas for older people. And this is where the first gas chambers are used, not in the death camps in Poland, but in hospitals in Nazi Germany, to get rid of that section of the population that they didn't want. Now, grade 11s, from this beginning starts this notion that you can get rid of citizens you consider undesirable. And we know who are the undesirables: the ones with bad blood, the ones with Jewish blood, the ones with criminal blood, the ones with impure blood. We've already got rid of the ones with diseased blood, so we can start doing other things, think the German nation. So although the Jewish population in Germany is less than 1% of the population, it's 0.8% of the population, the Nazis use propaganda to convince the masses that they are a danger and that they need to be removed. Now, grade 11s, I want to just remind you of something, because sometimes, we live in such a world of technology where everything is at our fingertips. Remember, no phones, mobile phones, no internet, no television. In fact, television was just beginning, but they weren't using it. So how does the propaganda machine work? Through radio, through mass rallies where speeches are made, through children's books and games, through lessons at school, through lessons at universities, through newspapers. This is how they start to convince the population that the Jews need to be removed. As the Nazis move through Europe, they round up Jews in every country, and they murdered them, both using a group called the Einsatzgruppen, which I'll talk about in the next unit, and in death camps built in Poland. So this was a genocide known today as the Holocaust, and it murdered 6 million Jewish people, and 1.5 million of whom were children. And Roma and Sinti gypsies were also sent to the camp. And by the end of the war, a genocide against Roma and Sinti, known as the Porajmos, had killed more than 500,000 Roma and Sinti people. And of course, this war that was begun by the Nazis under the leadership of Hitler killed countless other innocent people between 1939 and 1945. Grade 11, in Unit 7, in the next unit, we are going to examine how the Nazi war machine implements the final solution, which means trying to murder every last Jew in Europe through a range of methods which include labor and death camps. Grade 11, thank you very, very much for watching. I'll see you again in Unit 7, and we will continue with the Nazi case study until we have completed it. So thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.